Jessica Sagra and Nick Fike, and Sarah Chua, as a matter of fact. In fact, you'll hear from Jessica as soon as I'm done. I just want to introduce you to the department in case you don't know anything about community enhancement. I myself have been here almost 5 years. The department has been in existence for about 6 years. It's kind of a strange amalgamation of parts, so to speak. We do code enforcement, license inspection. We have a division called Keep Chesterfield Beautiful, which is like what I like to call our public works department, and real estate, housing, and revitalization. And we're also responsible, as I said, for all our federal funding, which is the reason why you're here today. So Jess is going to take you through all the steps that you have to take in order to apply for funding. Jess?
All right, thank you, Dan. Like you said, I'm Jessica Sagra, Real Estate and Housing Coordinator in Community Enhancement. I appreciate those folks who came in person today and everyone who's online. So here we go. We are going to look at the CDBG and home programs, the overview of what they entail for those who are new to the process, and then we'll walk through some project examples. We will talk about the just overall funding information and submittal requirements. We're going to be using the ZoomGrants grants management software again this year. That was new last year. We made some significant changes to the application this year, so it should be pretty smooth. We're going to walk through the evaluation criteria we put together for FY24, and we'll look at the application timeline, and we'll have a lot of time at the end for some questions and answers. So the Community Development Block Grant, this is the CDBG program. We receive about $1.4 million annually from HUD to implement the programs and activities that we fund with CDBG. CDBG offers a wide range of possible uses, mostly to benefit low and moderate income Chesterfield residents. So the graphic on the slide gives you a good idea of the wide array of available of things you could do with the funding. So anywhere from job training to health services, youth services, housing for seniors, home ownership opportunities, that sort of thing. So this list here kind of shows the wide range as well. It really is a project by project basis though. So what you really need to do with CDBG, first thing, is to meet a national objective. So there's 3 main national objectives. The one that is historically mostly used in for Chesterfield projects and is the benefit to low and moderate income residents. So that's the first one there. There's 4 categories under that. The area benefit is where within a particular area, all residents who are living there can have benefit or access to the service or the program or the project. And within that area, the majority of the residents have to be low or moderate income. So an example of that is like a parks improvement project in a certain area where everyone within the service area has access, but that service area is predominantly low or moderate income. That also could be like public infrastructure or public facilities. The next one is limited clientele. Limited clientele, it means that if you're putting on a program or project where at least basically the beneficiaries of the program, at least 51% have to be low or moderate income. And so a good example of that is something like a job training program, where it's a program that you can operate, but at least 51% of the people who are served in the program have to qualify as low or moderate income. And then housing, low mod housing is where it's like housing construction or rehab, that sort of thing, where everyone that you're serving, the household needs to be low mod. And lastly, the jobs is job retention or creation for low and moderate income residents. And I meant to say this in the last slide, 80% or below of area median income is the threshold for what low or moderate income means. So the second national objective is the elimination of slums and blight national objective. This one I will say hasn't been used very recently in Chesterfield. It really is used when it's not necessarily a low or moderate income area, but an area in the county that maybe needs some extra revitalization due to some blight, and you can utilize the funding in this way to address the blight and revitalization needs. And lastly, the urgent need national objective is also pretty rarely used. It really, there's a lot of quote unquote urgent needs in the county, right? Housing, affordable housing is urgent, but what this one really means is something like disaster recovery funding. So if you're using the CDBG funding to, address needs after flooding or hurricane, like those type of projects. And then, so this is every year we put together this map to help guide CDBG applicants to show where the CDBG low mod areas of the county are. So those are the areas that are in the yellow gold color. Those are census block groups, areas that are at least 50% of the residents there or 80% or below area median income. So this is just to guide organizations who are applying to say, if you have a project that is going to be eligible only because it's the low mod area national objective, then the project must be located in one of these areas. But if it's a countywide program where you're going to be serving clients from all over, like a home repair program where it's just the individual that needs to be low mod, it doesn't have to be in a specific area. So this is really just for those projects that are low mod area. And then the funding target areas, those just show where the county is looking to prioritize some of our funding. So this map, if you can see it, hopefully it shows that, it's really along the major corridors, so Midlothian Turnpike, Hull Street Road, and the Route 1 corridor and the surrounding neighborhoods there, and then down in Ettrick. And there is an interactive map for that so these slides we'll give the slides afterwards, it'll all be accessible, and that there's an interactive map that can be more helpful if you plug in a project address and you can find it that way. So the Home Grant, this is the Home Investment Partnerships Program. This is another funding source that the county receives every year from HUD. It's about $500,000 to $600,000 received each year. And this is used specifically to construct or maintain affordable housing for low-income households. So, like I said, it's all about housing activities under the home program. So we could fund programs from housing rehab to down payment assistance to housing construction, those type of programs that help support housing for low-income Chesterfield residents. So here's the income limit tables, and we wanted to provide this just to give everyone a sense of what we actually mean when we talk about 80% or below area median income. And so that the second column there, it's based on household size. So if a household of 4 is applying for home repair services, for example, right, they would have to be, their total household income would be no more than $80,550 a year. So I think this is helpful to kind of give everyone a sense of what the household type really is that we're serving here, and these are the HUD limits that are provided each year to help with that. And on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Nick to give some project examples for you all.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Feit. I'm also a real estate and housing coordinator with Jessica in the Department of Enhancement. So Jess is giving you the very important rules and technicalities that we have to follow, otherwise you get in trouble and we get in trouble. But I want to make it real with what we do and more importantly what our partners do with the money that we give them. Public service, that's a category of funding that we have that lets us do things that are more people-based versus, say, building-based or activities like that. And we have a program called Ways to Work, which helps people build credit. If you bought a car, you know that can be a nightmare to do. So negotiate that process, but also make a budget so that they can basically afford transportation, which helps them get back to work. It's a great program. It leverages a lot of other funding. So we provide some funding, but they are able to match that with quite a large amount of other partners too. So it's not just funding we would like to see with your applications, but also that you have other partners who are helping provide something too. And you probably do. So just let us know when you put that down in your application. The next project, you may or may not be aware of the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust. That's a relatively new entity that we've been partnering with for the last 3 years. They seek to try to extend the ladder of affordable home ownership further down the income spectrum by owning the land and helping someone afford a house at, say, a lower price. It functions very much the same way you would buy a home, just that it's a little bit cheaper now that you don't have to own the land. So we give them money to acquire homes that are at kind of the point of needing modification in terms of renovation of a kitchen, maybe weatherization improvements, windows, a new HVAC system, kind of the property that needs, it's not the end of its life, but just needs some updating. So we've got about 10 homes with them now. And obviously it's tough to acquire property, whether you're a nonprofit or not. But we're looking to grow that over time, little by little. And so that's just a simple affordable home qualification. The next program is one we've had going for a long time. This is with Project Homes. This uses home money, and this allows a home that's already owned by a person and therefore a affordable housing unit to be improved, maintained, and really emergency repairs made so that we have this affordable home ownership unit of affordable housing that continues to exist. So this, in our world, this is called NOAH, which is naturally occurring affordable housing, in that someone already is living there. We don't have to buy a new unit for them. So we have a lot of houses that are starting to age and people that they have fixed incomes, and we see a lot of need for this. But this is one of our we have 3 different home repair programs, or 4, and this is one of those 4. And then the last one is a relatively new project, and this is the Ettrick Landing subdivision that we are building both with Project Homes and the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust in Ettrick at the former Ettrick Elementary School site. We broke ground just recently. This is going to use a subset of our home funding, which is reserved for the CHDO, which is the Community Housing Development Organization. So we're going to build some homes with those, and that's another way that we're leveraging a larger group of funding. So there's different grants that are included in the subdivision. So that gives you, it's not, by all means, it is not the universe of activities you could do, but just a kind of a overshot of what we've been doing. So I'm going to pass it back to Jessica to give you some more information about how we've improved the application and made it easier for you and for us.
Okay, back to some of these technicalities, guys. So just to start off, we want to talk a little bit about some of our established priorities within the budget. Some of them have to do with regulatory caps, and others are just kind of based on how we are prioritizing utilizing the funding in different areas. So with public services, that is a CDBG section of activities, right? That's home is just housing. So public services includes like the social services, homeless service, job training, those types of programs. HUD puts a limit on that at 15% of our CDBG grant each year. So based on the applications we receive, we aim to have that at about 10 to 15% of our CDBG budget, up to 15% because of the cap. And then with administration and planning, we have to cap that at 20% per HUD guidelines as well. So, and each year we really keep it at about 10% or below for administration. And then, like I said, with housing and community and economic development, those other areas of type of projects that we could do with CDBG and home, it really kind of depends on the need and the type of projects, applications we receive each year. But I will say recently there has been a great demand for housing and housing related programs. So we're anticipating this year it being somewhere like 60 to 70%, if not more, in housing, and then 10 to 20% in community and economic development. Just depends on what applications we receive this year. So just some general main points related to the funding. The program year for this begins July 1st, 2023, so just so it's clear when the funding will be for. Another main point, and Nick alluded to this, is that the county does not fund 100% of any projects or programs. We're looking for there to be leveraged match funding, funding from other sources that help complete your overall budget. The environmental review is something important to touch on. So every project, regardless of the type, is subject to environmental review regulations because of the federal funding involved. But especially if your project involves construction or ground disturbance, work cannot begin until that environmental review process has been completed. And if you do receive funding, we'll all be in touch about that process. But just that's an important note about that. And also programs and projects are funded on reimbursement basis, so there's no upfront grant money provided. You all, pay your bills and do your project, and then you submit a request for reimbursement to us in order to receive the funding back. And lastly, for timely expenditure of funds, HUD looks for us to spend our funds as quickly and judiciously as possible. So awarded funds shall be spent by June 30th, 2023, which would be the end. Oh, that is the wrong date. I apologize, guys. Should be 2024. And that is the entirety of the program year, right? July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 is the FY24 program year. So that is particularly important for public service funded projects. That the funds are spent by the end of the program year, so June 30th, 2024. And that's because of compliance with that 15% cap that HUD has on the public service types of programs. So a little bit about the application submittal in ZoomGrants. So the link will be available to apply starting tomorrow, November 2nd, on our website. And that link will be provided in this PDF, and I'll also send it out via email so everyone has where the application will be. So basically what you'll do is when you're ready to apply, you click on that link in the website. If you have an existing ZoomGrants account from last year because of another program you've applied to, you can log in using that account, and then you would navigate to this, sorry, this is kind of blurry, to this apply button down here. And it'll just bring you directly to our application. It's a very simple, straightforward process. And then the person who's created the account or has the existing account, whoever starts the application is the application owner. And what you can do is it'll give you an option to add contributors once you set up the application. So if you need anyone else to have access, you can do it that way, and it'll walk you through the steps for that. And there's also a lot of ZoomGrants help documents online, so we can make sure you guys have those FAQs for the technical side of ZoomGrants as you are walking through the application. And so applications are going to be due Friday, December 16th, 2022. And you should get those in by 5 p.m. on that day. So a little bit about the application sections and overview here. So it is the main sections are familiar to what we had last year. You're going to have project name, information about your organization. One thing to note is that the UEI number has replaced the DUNS number starting this past year, so we're going to need that number as opposed to your DUNS number on this application. We're going to look for some information about the location of your project, an overall summary, and look at the need and benefit that the project will be providing. We'll ask some questions about your management and organization experience with similar programs or the same program. Project readiness, how ready is it to go when the program year begins? Your ability to link to county goals. So within our consolidated plan for the CDBG and home funding, there's some goals. We're looking at the strategic plan that the county has, and then the comprehensive plan the county has. So your ability to link to overarching goals that the county has for these types of projects. And then there's some questions on project evaluation. And lastly, a big change from last year for those of you who applied last year, the budget tab in the application is only going to ask you to list out the expenses that will be paid with the requested CDBG or home funding. So for example, it'll just be, if you're going to do personnel costs, $50,000, you just write personnel costs, $50,000, that's it. And that's all we'll ask in the application. But we do want you to attach your overall program or project budget as an attachment, just so we can see how your requested CDBG funding fits into the overall budget for your program or project, right? So that's where you'll include your other funding sources, your match funding, and we provided a template for that, so it should be pretty straightforward. And the template is in ZoomGrants, so you'll just download the template and fill yours out and re-upload it. Obviously, if there's questions about that, let us know, but it should be pretty straightforward. Another, in the document section, we'll also be looking for your tax exempt status verification, your most recent annual audit report, organization chart, funding award letter, so your additional funding sources and match funding. If you have award letters for that, that's great to attach. And then if your budget will contain indirect costs, we'll look for a cost allocation plan to support those. And I'm passing it back over to Nick for evaluation criteria.
Don't worry, we're recording this and we have lots of attachments where all the information we're dumping on you right now will be listed. So, and we'll take questions at the end, I promise. But the question remains, why do we want to go out with you and fund your project? And we want to provide some clarity on what we're looking for. Both, it makes it easier for us to decide what's best for our residents and our citizens, but also makes it easy for you to not spend hours and hours in your shower wondering if you've worded your sentence correctly to talk about leverage and other things. We have some basic scoring elements that you have to meet. So those are the basic CDBG requirements. These are, you must do, and if you don't do them, sorry, you're not eligible. You can also email us or call us if you have an idea and you just want to know whether it meets that basic criteria, but this is what Jess went over in the triangle, circle, square diagram at the beginning. So the next part is just linking back to what the county and we as a department are trying to do for our citizens. So there is, don't send us a project that you want to build a model Death Star in the backyard for affordable housing. That's not in the plan. So we want to make sure that you're in meeting those, absolutely. The next one, we've tried to organize some scoring criteria, and we've organized it along these 4 categories. Before I get there, these are our kind of top 3 priorities for what we're looking for, and it's housing in many ways, but it's also helping people in their communities and helping people kind of thrive economically. These are all things that, with inflation and more expensive housing and things like that, I think you will have not a hard time meeting these goals with your projects. So now I want to get into how we've kind of slimmed down scoring. And again, we have an attachment that breaks these categories into their individual components. But I'm just going to go through them in a little bit more specificity now. So the first is need. And that is, we want you to tell us why there is a need in Chesterfield. So that's, we don't necessarily need facts that say nationally this is an issue. We need this is an issue in Chesterfield and this is why. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, but make it about Chesterfield residents and neighborhoods. We want you to make the case why you think the program you're proposing is a great option relative to all the options that you might think of and pick. We could house people in a Death Star, but is that the best thing to do? No. I'm sorry if you're proposing that project. And then we want to make sure that you've thought about what you're going to do is you're going to be able to document and measure just the benefit you're providing to residents. This is by far maybe the one I would say you want to spend the most time on, because this is like the first part of coming up with a good idea to pitch to us. The next is it's about your organization. So this is, do you have experience, and are you kind of robust and resilient enough to carry out what you plan to do? Then we want to know a little bit about your program. Is your program both like lean and efficient in what you do, but also adequately geared up to be ready to go when you are awarded the funds. And then the last bit is about just leverage funding, but also partners. So it's easier when you have many people helping you out with getting to an objective. So sometimes that's not necessarily, often it's not financial. It is just we're working with this group to identify people that will be part of our program and things like that. These are all things I think our past positions had no difficulty in outlining and just describing to us. And it wouldn't be a complete application without an opportunity for a bonus. So we've got a couple things that are high priorities for us, and if you are meeting these, we will give you a bump. And that said, we're ready to take questions from anyone in the audience, anyone at home. We also have things online, and we have our contact information here. Oh, one more thing. So as Jess said, applications are due on the 16th, so plan your holiday parties for after that date. And we'll get things up tomorrow, and that's a fair amount of time. You know, we'll be in touch with you and available for anyone that's putting an application together. We know that this is the time of year for that. And then what everyone wants to know is when will we know about funding? Our board will approve funding, and that's when it becomes available to the public. So that happens in April if everything with HUD is on track. And now we are ready for questions for anyone that has them. And yeah, come back up, Jessica.
Yeah, anyone, I'll start in the in-person audience. If anyone has questions first, we'll start there. All right, that's great. Anything?
I'm thinking this question is probably answered in all the materials you're going to send out, but would an application that doesn't adhere very closely to your geographic focus areas be a strong application? So not along the Midlothian corridor or an Ettrick?
So I think, so the question was for those online were, if the project does not adhere to the priority focus areas, would it still be considered a strong project? I think what you're getting at is, so basically the only way we're like scoring the target areas is within like this bonus point section, right? So as long as you have a strong application, I think in the main criteria, then it would definitely still be considered, especially because the geographic focus is really just, you know, priority, this is where we're thinking. And if there's needs that you're addressing that are strong, and there's, you know, strong support in the application for it, then I think it could still be considered a strong application. Do you agree with that, Nick? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way of answering. But those areas also often are very easy to meet the HUD requirements in terms of low to mod clientele or low mod area. So,
right. That's a good point. Yeah.
But we have programs that are all across the county. So
exactly.
Don't think that we don't
Anyone else here in person? Yeah, go ahead.
Does anyone who's written the application, can anyone say how long it takes to complete the application?
The question for those online is, how long does it normally take to complete the application who's completed it in the past? And I think we have some folks in the room who could answer that.
I mean,
it's not quick, but there's nothing tricky about it. Right. You know, I mean, there's a lot that's very thorough, but.
And there's a lot of just to read the research before you do it. So like including that time, it takes
about 10 or 12 hours.
Oh no, I spend longer than that. I would say probably like 40.
I will say we're hopeful this year that we narrowed down a lot of the questions to be more to the point. We're hopeful, and we want to hear your feedback after this cycle, because we really did a lot of sifting through and editing to make sure we're really just getting the information we need and not putting you guys through more work than you need to. So hopefully, we're hopeful that question gets answered differently next year.
We're anti-admin budget.
Okay, so Sarah, are you monitoring the chat on there?
I see people typing, but nothing's popping up.
Okay, so if anyone online, I think the best way to, I guess we can take you off mute if you want to be ask some questions, but you also could type it in the chat or contact us after today if you have questions that come up. Okay. Anyone else?
Okay, well, thank you all the nonprofits for doing what you do. You turn the money into real, actual items for people, and we really appreciate that because we often live between, these are the rules, you must do this, and, we don't get the joy of often seeing it, but you guys help us make it real, so we really appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank y'all. You guys are so receptive and, I mean, very much a partnership, so.
Great.
After that 40 hours.
Yes.
Not just straight bread, there's a lot of.
I understand. Well,
A lot
yes.
of it is figuring out those zones, so I mean, you don't want some of the changes in that would potentially make some difference.
Okay, great. Yes, we have an interactive map. Good.
Some
Okay.
of it's that, because we don't use that for any other grants, right? So a lot of the other questions you're writing for other things, like you can kind of say, oh, well, we kind of have some of that, but that one is so specific. So any improvements on that question will be targeted.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you all again. We really appreciate it. Is there anything in the chat? Okay. All right.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining.